Well, good afternoon to our friends on the East Coast and Central Time Zone, and good morning to those who are a little bit farther west. My name is Eric Eversole, and I'm the president of Hiring Our Heroes, and I'm also a vice president at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today as we launch a practical guide for employers who are committed to wellness and well-being in the workplace, as well as a signing ceremony for new companies who are joining our collective effort. A little more than 9 months ago, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and Hiring Our Heroes, along with the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Prevents Executive Order Task Force, launched a collaborative effort to address wellness and well-being in the workplace. We held a signing ceremony last November where more than 40 major corporations and organizations joined our effort, including 15 Fortune 50 companies. Our goal was pretty simple. How do we learn from each other, and how do we share best practices on creating a workplace that prioritizes mental health and wellness? Today's launch of the Practical Guide is an important first step in that effort. The Practical Guide is a collection of those best practices, and it's designed to help businesses of all sizes as they work to create and implement a wellness strategy in their workplaces. I've been incredibly honored to work with such a great team spanning both the private and public sectors on this effort. You will hear from many of them today, but this has truly been a team effort. So my hat off and thanks to all those great team members who have participated in this collective effort. Thank you. But before we launch this paper, we do have a couple of special guests that I would like to introduce. And our first special guest is someone who, in my view, epitomizes the very best of the post 9/11 veteran. Someone who has displayed incredible courage, strength, and grit. Someone who has served our country with unwavering commitment. And someone who continues to give back to this great nation each and every day. Please join me in welcoming Medal of Honor recipient, Staff Sergeant Ryan Pitts. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Eric. I heard you talking about somebody that epitomizes post 9/11 veterans. I was waiting for somebody else to step in and speak for me, but thanks for having me. You know, I appreciate it. I'm really excited about the Wellbeing in the Workplace initiative. In my mind, this sort of focus on mental health for not only veterans, but civilians, for everybody, all Americans, has been a long time coming, and in my mind, overdue. You know, my experience with mental health has been viewed through that of a post 9/11 veteran. I served in the global war on terror, did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and there's been, you know, a lot of attention given to veterans over the last 20 years and the mental health challenges that we've had returning, both from, you know, trauma that we may have seen or other factors, but also the transition home. I've seen my friends, my peers go through it and, you know, be challenged at different points in their transition, different points in their life. And I've gone through it on my own. I've seen it with my civilian friends. Now, I served 6 years in the Army, did 2 tours in Afghanistan, just over 27 months. And I spent a lot of those 6 years thinking about how much easier life was going to be when I became a civilian, naively. And wasn't until I became a civilian that I realized that it's not any easier than what I had been through. It's just a different type of hard. We all experience stressors. Anybody can experience trauma. You know, veterans certainly don't have the market cornered on trauma. But I think there's been an opportunity for us to lead the conversation on the impacts of these very real mental health challenges. You know, I've caught myself before talking about mental health and saying, oh, well, I go see my regular doctor. Well, they're all regular doctors. My primary care physician, an orthopedist, a cardiologist, the psychologist, the psychiatrist. And that's part of changing the stigma, of changing our perception of mental health being this distinct difference from physical health. If I'm not well, then people need to feel supported and empowered to go get that help wherever it is, because we're all only hurting ourselves. And that stigma, I believe, is very real, and it impacts us all in different ways. My peers have opened up to me and talked to me before about their experiences, and I've heard I don't know if it's shame, the apprehension, the concern about what I'm going to think about them. And I can tell you that there's nothing that could diminish what I think of the men and women that I served with, regardless of what physical or mental ailments they're afflicted with or they face. I've always looked at it as, we've all earned the right to lead healthy, happy lives, whatever it takes to get there. And life is hard. As I was saying, civilian life isn't any easier. They're right now in this current environment with COVID-19 of, what is going to happen with children that go to school, people that are working, people that aren't working, trying to figure that out. So none of us are immune to the stressors of daily life. But it is so great to see this initiative and these organizations coming together to take those steps necessary to make sure that everybody is being supported in the ways that they need to be. I myself have gone through it. I've gotten help for mental health. I've gone to the VA. So thanks to you, Secretary Wilkie, and all your wonderful staff that have helped me and my peers. And there was overcoming that stigma for myself. I could tell you that the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, including being in Afghanistan, was to pick up the phone or tell other people that I needed more help than what I could do on my own. And this is a great opportunity to end suffering in silence for anybody that faces mental health challenges. So thank you to all of you that are going to be part of the signing today, for your leadership and your dedication to your employees and your fellow Americans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan, and my apologies to our next guest speaker, having to follow those very real and powerful words of strength and inspiration. I know he's up for the task. He's someone who took the reins of the VA at a time of great challenge, unprecedented change, and that was before COVID-19. And he's someone who has steered the VA not only for the now, but for its long-term and enduring important place in America. I think that he may not talk about it, but I certainly will. Some of the user satisfaction ratings, it's the highest it's ever been at the VA. And it's through his leadership and his commitment to the men and women who serve that is making a difference each and every day for our veterans and their families across the country. Please join me in welcoming the 10th Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the Honorable Robert Wilkie.
Well, thank you, Eric, and those words were too kind. I've been blessed in my career to work for some of America's greatest leaders, names like Rice, Gates, Rumsfeld, and Mattis. But I've said all across the country that the greatest honor, the greatest experience that I've ever had is to be part of the VA family. And also the honor of following Americans like Sergeant Pitts. I've been accused of being an historian or referring everything back to the Roman Empire. I'll plead guilty to the historian part, but I won't go back to the Roman Empire in my remarks today. But I do want to talk about, my first impression is that a man whose picture I keep on my desk. He was a farmer in Jackson County, Missouri. He was close to being blind. He was older than most of his peers when World War I started, and he lied and he cheated to get into the field artillery because he couldn't bear the thought of his friends and neighbors going to war without him. He had 2 horses shot out from under him. And he would later go on to be probably the one president who made more difficult and far-reaching, world-shattering decisions in the shortest amount of time than any president in history. And that was Harry Truman, a common man who represented the common American, 41 million who have taken up arms since Lexington in April of 1775. And the reason I refer to Captain Harry Truman in following Sergeant Pitts is because Truman was very clear that he once said that he would much rather stand in the shoes of a holder of the Medal of Honor than be President of the United States. So Eric, you are right. It is humbling to follow a warrior and a patriot like Sergeant Pitts. I'm going to now step back to my own personal experience, something that animates me every day here. And it is the experience of looking at warriors through the eyes of a child, not through the eyes of a reserve officer, someone who's been on active duty, through the eyes of a 6 and 7-year-old. My father was grievously wounded in the invasion of Cambodia. In those days, family was not allowed to visit wounded warriors. In this case, he spent a year at Tripler Army Hospital in Hawaii. There was no Fisher House. There was no support from the community. It just was what it was. He recovered. In 3 years, he was allowed to return to Fort Bragg and to put on the Red Beret of the 82nd Airborne Division. But the one thing that seared my memory, even more than his appearance when I first saw him after he returned, weighing about half of what he did when he left, was the reception he got from the community at large. He and his fellow All-Americans, the men of the Green Beret who were on the same street at Fort Bragg on Ardennes Street, were not allowed to wear their uniforms off post. And there was a pledge that was made by those Americans who had served as nobly and as difficult a war zone and as difficult battles as any of their predecessors in American history. Their pledge was that they would never allow one generation of veterans to abandon another. And I think that's what we are seeing here. But to tell you how that war, which ended 45 years ago in May for America, still impacts us. And it's the reason we're here. 20 Americans every day who have put on a uniform take their lives. Of those 20, about 60% are from Vietnam. Let's put that in perspective again. I mentioned 45 years since Saigon fell. It's been 51 years since Lyndon Johnson left Washington, D.C. to return to Texas. That's how long America has been trying to come to grips with that story. But of course, the story of veterans, those who take their lives by suicide, is not particular to Vietnam veterans. The Army just started taking statistics on veterans or soldiers' suicide in the 1890s. And we have never yet as a nation come to grip with that, had that national conversation, had the national conversation about mental health. That is why this effort, well-being in the workplace, is so important, that we say never again will we leave our veterans on the side of the road as we did in my youth. And never again will the wider community stand aside and let those veterans and their service go unhonored. That's why this is so important. The bringing together of partners across the country. I do want to mention, I mentioned Eric, but I also want to mention Deborah Scheer and everything that she has done to raise the flag of veterans' causes across the country to our greatest corporations. I mean, look at what we're doing now as a result of her work and the result of Eric, the result of so many who are on this video right now. Great companies like T-Mobile and Philips who are expanding our aperture when it comes to telehealth. Just to give you an example, what has come about as a result of this epidemic that we are going through, experiencing in this country. In a normal month, we have about 40,000 mental health teleappointments. In the month of June, we had 905,000. We've shown that modern technology can be used to create an environment to help those who are struggling with the effects of service. Walmart has begun building telehealth clinics behind the pharmacy counter in Walmarts all across the country. All of this is a result of this wonderful cooperation that we have with well-being in the workplace. I also want to thank the President of the United States. I've said this in testimony and I've said it on national news. People have touched the issue of death by suicide in the past, but no president has ever made it a national cause. And that's why I also want to thank Barbara Van Dalen for taking time, for coming out of her regular life to take on this cause and lead us to a national solution to combat death by suicide. Because I argue that because most Americans understand at one level what it means when a fellow American puts on that uniform and when that fellow American takes off a uniform. If we can make inroads in stopping this scourge, it will not just benefit those Americans who serve in the military. It will be a guidepost to Americans across the country. And that is a second service that our men and women in uniform can provide for the nation upon whose freedoms rest on their shoulders. So I can't thank you enough. I want to close with a story that I've used often in the last year. Again, it comes from my childhood growing up at Fort Bragg amongst those who wore the red beret of the 82nd Airborne Division. The greatest of all airborne warriors was Matthew Ridgway. General Ridgway led the All-American Division to victory in North Africa and Sicily, and he planned the airborne assault on Hitler's Fortress Europe. And as he was about to launch, the Red Devils of the British 1st Airborne, the All-Americans of the 82nd and the Screaming Eagles of the 101st, he was restless, he couldn't sleep. And he fell out of his cot and reached for the Old Testament when he got up. And he turned to the Battle of Jericho in the book of Joshua and God's promise to not fail nor forsake. That is what we are about now, to not fail nor forsake those thousands and thousands of American warriors who have given so much to their fellow citizens by finally closing one of the last circles when it comes to protecting and nurturing those who have served. That is why this is so important. That is why I can never begin to thank the team at the Chamber enough. And I wish you Godspeed as you continue to move forward in this very glorious effort. So without further ado or any comments from me, I also want to turn to someone whose own family life is guided and colored by service. She is the mother of a Marine Corps warrior, an aviator. She is the mother-in-law of a naval warrior, someone who is right now at sea. I've traveled with her just recently to Pittsburgh to look at the creative ways that we are working to slow the impact of mental health issues on those who have served. So it is always my honor and great pleasure to introduce the Second Lady of the United States, Mrs. Karen Pence, and thank her for everything she does for those in uniform.
Hello, I'm Karen Pence, Second Lady of the United States, and I'm very honored to serve as the lead ambassador for Prevents, because I believe that working together, we can implement the roadmap and end the national tragedy of suicide. You know, we are facing an epidemic of suicide. It is the 10th leading cause of death overall in our nation, and painful to believe, it is the second leading cause of death for 10 to 34-year-olds. And those who have defended our nation in uniform are 1.5 times more likely to die by suicide than Americans who never served in the military. And for women veterans, the risk factor is over twice as much. Adding to the tragedy of these lives lost is that suicide is preventable. So what can we do? Well, we need to elevate the conversation about mental health and well-being and create an environment where people feel comfortable reaching out when they're vulnerable. No one should feel afraid to ask for help. And we also need to learn about the risk factors that we all carry for suicide to recognize them in ourselves and in our loved ones. By understanding these factors, we can reach out to them before a moment of crisis, and we can reach out when we are struggling. We also need to recognize our protective factors, like a sense of purpose, healthy family relationships, friends, and faith-based communities to support us, particularly in a time of need. And we must strengthen our protective factors for our nation's veterans and our service members, our military families who have done so much for us. You know, we live in challenging times. So more than ever before, we need to open conversations about emotional well-being and mental health. These are as critical as conversations about our physical health. I urge all Americans to take the Prevents Pledge to prevent suicide and be part of the solution. Together, we can prevent suicide. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Secretary Wilkie, and obviously great thanks to Mrs. Pence for your shared commitment to this very, very important cause, and one that is critical to our nation, not only to our veterans, but all Americans. And thank you for that commitment and what you're doing across this great nation. Our next guest speaker is a friend of mine, someone I've had the honor of working with very closely over the last year. I think it's been a year since he was finally confirmed, but someone who shares that passion and commitment for service members and their family members. Please join me in welcoming the Assistant Secretary for Veterans Employment and Training at the Department of Labor. This is Secretary Lowry. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. It's a privilege to be here with all of you today for the launch of the Wellbeing in the Workplace Employer Guidebook and signing ceremony. And many thanks to Hiring Our Heroes for hosting this event. As always, Eric, I appreciate your leadership and the efforts of your entire team. Thank you also to Secretary Wilkie for your inspiring and thoughtful remarks, and to Staff Sergeant Pitts for your courage in sharing your personal story, and of course for your courage and conspicuous gallantry in Afghanistan. We all salute you. I too want to acknowledge the leadership and hard work of Dr. Van Dalen and Deborah Scheer, and the commitment from the many stakeholders who are taking part in this important effort. Ending the tragic loss of life by suicide is an ambitious and noble effort, and I'm encouraged by the numbers of partners committed to the cause. The level of collaboration you demonstrate, the progress that we made towards prioritizing well-being in the workplace is truly inspiring. And we know at the Department of Labor and understand that when you can engage yourself at work, it promotes your mental health. It protects against the ills of despair and grief. Meaningful employment, leads to financial stability, as Mrs. Pence said, a sense of purpose, social connectedness, and all of this strengthens resiliency. In the Veterans Employment and Training Service, the agency that I'm privileged to lead, is our vision that all veterans live up to their full potential in the workplace. To reach one's full potential requires the right conditions, frankly, the right conditions at work. And we are fortunate to have partners like you to support the effort. To the extent that we can all efficiently harness our collective energies, we'll be able to help veterans of all eras achieve success. When the veteran reaches the potential, it not only benefits the veteran and the family, but it's great for the organization or business that veteran serves, because the veteran's able to make that much more of an impact. And when you aggregate that across society, that increased impact, that's just great for American prosperity. By sharing best practices and prioritizing well-being in the workplace, you are also promoting prosperity, because you're influencing company cultures in important ways. We all know that leadership matters, right? Positive, engaged, and effective leadership, which is what your guidebook encourages, creates environments where all employees, not just veteran employees, but all employees feel valued and have a sense of purpose. This drives improved morale, this collective sense of well-being, and it drives employee engagement. And one of the lessons, the enduring lessons, really, I've learned from my decades in the private sector is just how closely correlated employee engagement is with business results. So the win-win you're creating with the guidebook is basically saving lives, but also promoting the conditions for improved company performance. And what you're doing is truly, truly important. And I thank everyone for their efforts and their commitment. Eric, back to you.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Lowry. It's now my privilege to introduce the Special Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy of the United States Domestic Policy Council, James Baer.
Hey there, it's great to be here today. I am reaching you from the old executive office building. I'm in one of the Secretary of War suites, which are lovely rooms, but also somber and remind us of the decisions that are made that impact so many Americans, including all of the veterans. I've had the pleasure of serving as a special assistant to the president, helping with veterans policy for the last year, but my workplace has changed dramatically over the course of the last few years. 2 years ago today, I was coming back from a reserve deployment to the Middle East. And as you all know, the opportunity to serve in the military is such a powerful experience that binds you towards others. And some have talked about that already on this call. And that gives you a tribe, a group of people you're working with together, and gives you a mission and a purpose. And so it's so important, and we're so thankful that so many employers recognize the value and the importance provided by the workplace in assuring mental health, in assuring a sense of belonging, and assuring a larger sense of purpose. I think what's been key as I've worked here on veteran policy in the White House has been our focus on empowering civil society. I think you see that in prevents. I think you heard that with Secretary Wilkie's remarks, that unfortunately many of those who take their lives through suicide, veterans, and unfortunately many who struggle with mental health never set foot into VA. And unfortunately they're not involved, but they are involved in workplaces. They are involved in families. They are involved in veteran service organizations. They are at churches and synagogues. And so to the extent that we can empower civil society to help accomplish this great purpose and this great goal that we have of reducing veteran suicide and ensuring well-being, we're going to succeed where we haven't before. And that's what I'm most excited about. And whether that's prevents, whether that's grants to civil society groups to help them, whether it's partnerships, we see tremendous opportunity. And certainly what you all are doing, what the Chamber is doing with Hiring Our Heroes and with this workplace mental health effort is so important for that. So we're extremely thankful. If there's anything that I can do to help advance civil society and what you all are doing, please let me know. I exist here to be a resource for you and a help to you as we work to improve veteran mental health across the country, and as we work to finally end veteran suicide. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you for those gracious remarks. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Van Winkle, who's the Executive Director of the Office of Force Resiliency for the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. Dr. Van Winkle.
Hi there. You don't have Dr. Van Winkle. You have Dr. Karen Orvis.
Well, what a great surprise, Dr. Orvis. It's so great to see you.
Great to see you as well, and really a pleasure to be here today. Unfortunately, Dr. Van Winkle's power is out today. Otherwise, she would certainly be here. So she sends her regrets, but I'm here today on behalf of not only Dr. Van Winkle, but also Secretary Esper and Undersecretary Donovan. Really want to thank Staff Sergeant Pitts, first of all, for your service, your extraordinary heroism, your continued leadership as you support your sisters and brothers in arms. And your words today for me were really powerful, so I thank you for that. I also want to thank the Chamber of Commerce Foundation for organizing this event. Really appreciate the work that Hiring Our Heroes is doing and all of the partners in the private sector, and what you've been doing to support our veterans, military spouses, and military members in terms of finding meaningful employment opportunities. At DoD, we're truly excited to partner with Prevent and the full network of collaborators who are working tirelessly to end the national tragedy of suicide. Suicide truly is a top priority for Secretary Esper and throughout the Department of Defense. We have a moral responsibility to make sure we're taking care of our millions of active and reserve component members, their families, as well as our veterans who have served our country. We're committed to their health and well-being. And when we lose anyone to suicide, the loss is heartbreaking and the impact is profound. Each life lost has a unique and deeply personal story, and we know that each of those lives is leaving someone behind who is struggling not only with how to cope and understand with answers that they're never going to have, but also how do they talk about this with others. All of us here today know that suicide prevention is a national challenge, and it requires a national dialogue toward a solution. We have to harness the intelligence, the innovation, the intuition of all Americans across all sectors to foster a culture in which every American can thrive. And the launch of the practical guide today for our business coalition partners is a big step that I believe is going to help us get there. I ask that we all dig into this important resource and we commit to implementing the evidence-informed practices, adapting it to our organizations, and helping enrich the lives of our teams. We all have to walk the talk, and we have to instill in each of our communities that suicide is preventable, and that prevention requires more than just intervention at the point of crisis. We have to demonstrate through both our words and our actions that help-seeking behaviors are a sign of strength, and we need to encourage others to reach out before challenges become crises. By addressing these challenges and providing and encouraging support early on, employers truly have the unique opportunity to prevent much more serious outcomes in their employees' lives. This is a huge undertaking, and it's our collective mission to end suicide, and an audacious one at that. But it is certainly comforting to know that we are tackling this public health challenge together, and I'm hopeful through Prevent we'll be successful. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And again, I want to thank the many employers and the private sector organizations that have pledged their support. I really applaud your efforts to ensure that your employees are equipped to lead healthy and meaningful lives. And of course, I want to thank you for your unwavering dedication and support of the women, men, and their families that proudly support, protect, and defend our nation. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Orvis, and it's so good to see you, and we're so honored to have you join us today. Our next guest speaker has been doing incredible work with the Prevent Executive Order Task Force. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Barbara Van Dalen, who's the Executive Director of the Prevents Executive Order Task Force. Dr. Van Dalen?
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for hosting another amazing effort. And I want to thank everybody who's joining today, whether you're speaking, whether you're one of the organizations that is a signer on the pledge, whether you've contributed your resources, your knowledge to create the guide. This is such an important effort. And I was just reflecting, watching everyone speak, and I love being sort of cleanup for this first part of the program today, because I can really, recognize and acknowledge everyone that came before. Look at the people who are taking their time to be with us today, either in person or Mrs. Pence sharing her video. So I want to thank again the Chamber and Hiring Our Heroes, Eric and his amazing team, Deborah Shear for the work she's done through the Office of Strategic Partnerships at the VA, Secretary Wilkie for his steadfast leadership and his kind words about the work of Prevents. Prevents, for those of you who don't know, stands for the President's Roadmap to Empower Veterans and End a National Tragedy of Suicide. We cannot do our work. We cannot create an all-of-nation, all-of-government effort if we don't have partners. And so I mentioned some already, and then you also heard from Secretary Lowry and Dr. Orvis representing DOL and DOD, and Jim Baer, who has worked with me side by side for the better part of a year on the Prevents efforts. This is an incredible opportunity. You heard from Sergeant Pitts. We are about culture change. Everything that we are doing with this guide, with this effort, will continue to drive culture change, so that all of those in need, all of us and our families, whether we're veterans, service members, family members, any of us, all of us, at times need help. And sometimes we need a lot of it, and we need to ensure that we can all receive it. That's what the guide is about. That's what Prevents is about. I'm really proud as a mental health professional who's dedicated my career as a psychologist to the work that we are now seeing all take shape in this effort through Prevents and the guide, through Hiring Our Heroes, the good work at Department of Labor and Defense. It's amazing, actually. I want a special nod and thank you to Sergeant Pitts for acknowledging that we are real doctors. We are healers. We have always been. And yet for far too long, mental health in general, emotional pain and suffering, suicide, these issues have been kept in the dark, and people have been afraid to talk about what are human conditions, things that we all experience. And I put in that bucket other things that we refer to, sadly, that result in deaths of despair, opioid addiction, substance use. Either they're caused by emotional pain and suffering, or if they happen, if someone becomes addicted to opioids, they experience emotional pain and suffering. And it is our job to reach out to our citizens, to our service members, our veterans, and ensure that resources and support are available. So this is a critical opportunity. It's been just delightful to work on this guide. Again, very proud to see the translation of very solid psychological concepts now being packaged into a guide that will be useful for any employer anywhere in America. And it's our job through Prevents to continue our partnerships to push out the guide, to invite and engage all of the corporations that we can get our hands on to sign the pledge that Hiring Our Heroes has created to distribute the guide. I want to say a couple of things about what's coming next for Prevents. So in addition to this work and this important effort and this partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the Department of Veterans Affairs to launch this guide, next month is September. September is Suicide Prevention Month. We at Prevents have recently launched the first ever national public health campaign called REACH. And this guide and this work is part of this national public health effort. So for those of you who are interested in learning more, please visit our website. Karen Migdale, who's our senior comms advisor, is going to post our website, the Prevents website, in the chat space. She's also going to post the REACH website, which is wearewithinreach.net. There's another pledge that we want all Americans to take and all organizations to take, and that is a pledge to be part of the REACH effort, to reach out when you're in need, to reach those who may be struggling. Please do your part, become part of the solution. All the corporations who are signing today, all who already have, are already part of the solution. Help us. We're going to do a huge pledge drive in September. We're going to be reaching out to all the folks who are on this Zoom today, asking you to help us. So thank you for that. Now it is my pleasure to call attention to elevate and amplify an example of the Prevents partnership in action. You have one with this wonderful effort with Hiring Our Heroes. And I'm going to share now a video, the first video that was created to educate and amplify our effort through a video that we used to launch our first ever national public health campaign called REACH. This video was created, was funded, was given by two of the corporations, two of the organizations that have signed the pledge. So this video we are very proud of. It was given to us by PenFed and by Soldier Strong. So thank you to Eric, to Hiring Our Heroes, to the Chamber, to all of our partners. Thank you to PenFed and Soldier Strong for creating the first video for REACH.
Wanted the thoughts to stop, the memories to stop, the nightmares to stop.
Right now in our country, too many of our friends, families, and neighbors are suffering and are at risk for suicide. This is especially true for the extraordinary men and women who choose to serve our country.
One night, I just was like, I can't take this anymore.
I felt it was the only way out.
I think I not only attempted it once, I probably attempted it like multiple times.
132 Americans a day are losing their lives to suicide. And each suicide is not only an individual tragedy, it also brings severe suffering to the many people attached to the individual who dies. Suicide is a national crisis that touches all of us. First responders, farmers, university students, LGBTQ+, all are confronting high rates of suicide. The COVID-19 crisis is only making a bad situation worse. But this need not be the case. Suicide is preventable.
I didn't want to end it all. I just wanted to end the pain. It was more of a cry for help.
Somebody might look normal, might be normal, but the next thing you know, they're gone because nobody asked them, are you okay? Are you having a bad day? Are you do you need to talk?
As a nation, we must reach out to those who are suffering. Just the act of reaching out to those in need can help save lives.
What you're going through now isn't always going to be.
Approach somebody about this.
Talk to someone. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It doesn't have to be a doctor. It can just be a friend. You need help. Reach out and get it.
We are all within reach. Reach out to someone you know today. And if you are hurting, please reach for help.
Just reach out.
Barbara, Karen, everybody on the Prevents Executive Order Task Force, thank you for not only that powerful video and your work with the PenFed Foundation, but thank you for your incredible work and efforts to launch this really important initiative. So thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Prevents team, for making it happen. Now it's time to launch the practical guide for wellness in the workplace, and you know, I really want to turn it over to my partner in crime to help launch this effort. Someone who came to Hiring Our Heroes to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation with this idea. It was about a year ago to say, hey, look, how can we engage the business community to not only help end veteran suicide, but how do we make, you know, corporations, businesses, a workplace that supports and prioritizes mental health and wellness. So please join me as we launch this practical guide. Deborah Shear, who is a special assistant to the Secretary of VA and is the VA Secretary Center for Strategic Partnerships. Deborah, please help us launch this new practical guide. And again, thank you for being a great partner in crime in this effort.
So Eric, thank you so much. It has been an incredible opportunity to go on this journey with you. And we are so grateful to you. Can you see me okay on your screen? You're good. Terrific. Okay. You know, this is such a powerful moment, Eric, and to all of our partners. We have come so far together. It's just extraordinary to be at this milestone. I'd like to take a minute and just speak about Eric and how much we at the VA have grown to admire and be grateful for his commitment, his perseverance, and his partnership in building this very powerful coalition determined to take on one of America's greatest challenges. 1 year ago, when Secretary Wilkie urged us at the VA to think of effective ways to reach the veteran community outside of VA care, where 65% of veteran suicides occur, I immediately thought of our private sector partners and immediately called Eric. And after instantly responding with, "How can I help?" his next statement was, "Mental wellness and suicide prevention are issues our partners care about, and they will want to help." And help all of you did in ways that we could have never imagined. And even though the world has progressed a great deal since the days when Secretary Wilkie's father served, it still takes courage, it still takes compassion, and it still takes vulnerability to take on this cause. All of us at the VA and in the veteran community are incredibly grateful for Eric's exceptional leadership, the entire Hiring Our Heroes team, and for the work of our partners. We have been inspired by your engagement, your expertise, and your determination to lean in to strengthen the mental well-being of your colleagues and your communities. Eric and I have pledged to roll out this guide to our local organizations, the local VSO organizations and the local Chamber of Commerce organizations. And we are asking you today to join us in that rollout. We're going to assume the answer is yes, and we are going to thank you in advance for your leadership commitment to share this invaluable guide with your company partners, with your local communities, so that this thoughtful expertise and guidance can strengthen the mental well-being of veterans and American families throughout our country. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Deborah. And let me introduce the person who's going to introduce our first chapter. Major General Chris Cortez, who's currently the Vice President at Microsoft. He's going to help us introduce this first chapter. General Cortez, the floor is yours, sir.
Hey, thank you, Eric. Let me just say that on behalf of Microsoft, I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the organizations who have participated in this important endeavor. Now more than ever before, our country needs all the help it can get when it comes to our mental well-being. At Microsoft, we've enhanced the support and resources available to our employees if and when they need it, as well as ensuring employees understand what's available to them. Enhancements to our programs and resources include expanding the number of free counseling sessions available globally through our Employee Assistance Program to 12 sessions per issue per year, making information on mental health resources, programs, and benefits easier to find, enhancing the resources available to our managers, including a manager quick guide that explains what managers should focus on when talking about mental and emotional well-being with their teams. In addition, we execute an annual company-wide mental health campaign that highlights the resources and programs available and includes messaging to help employees understand that it's okay not to be okay, and to ensure that we continue meeting the needs of all of our employees. We formed a cross-company mental health working group and steering committee. Due to the impacts of COVID-19 in the United States, we've also provided access to a number of video-based therapy providers, which are free for employees via our healthcare plan through 2020. Many of you know that my son, a 2002 graduate of the United States Naval Academy, served 8 years in the Navy, and within 5 months of leaving active service in 2010, he was diagnosed with bipolar I disorder. He took his own life in 2019. This reminds us of the huge challenge our military has with suicide prevention. Between 2010 and 2019, I attended several support sessions with my son at the VA hospital in La Jolla, California. An organization called DBSA, Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, for the last 20 years has held 2 evening sessions weekly for veterans and civilians in the local area who are struggling with a mental illness. Because I've met some of the leaders of DBSA San Diego, I asked Eric if they could attend today's event, and he said yes. So I want to welcome the representatives from DBSA San Diego and say thank you for all you do for our veterans and civilian members of the local community. You are truly amazing. And with that, Eric, over to you.
Thank you, General Cortez, for your commitment and your inspiring words. And you're one of those people that lead by example. And I can't thank you enough for all of your efforts. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Pam Corson, who's the Vice President of Global Health Organizations for Prudential. Pam?
Thank you. Hope you can hear me okay, Eric. It's so great to be here. You know, this is really moving. We've been on this journey together, and thank you so much for this opportunity to partner with Hiring Our Heroes and everyone else who's joined us today to launch this incredible resource. It's been a privilege to be part of this journey. You know, at Prudential, we have a long history of supporting our employees. This is a really critical topic for us. We have always tried to have a culture of health and well-being at Prudential. We know that the work environment is a critical driver of health. We understand that the health of our workforce is intrinsically linked to the health of our organization, but it's the right thing to do. Our commitment over time has included our comprehensive health strategy, proactive programs, visible organizational and community support. And along with this, of course, is a focus on reducing stigma related to mental health, which is a big piece of why we're here today. And of course, this first chapter. You know, many people won't seek help. We've been talking about that if they feel shame or stigma or misunderstanding. So we want to create a work environment where people feel empowered and comfortable accessing the resources that we have. One of the ways that we do this is by really embracing a holistic approach to well-being for our employees. We have a multi-dimensional definition of health and wellness where we focus on the physical, emotional, social, financial, cognitive, and spiritual aspects of wellness. And this really provides a foundation for the development and delivery of all of our services and programs. And within that framework, of course, we recognize that behavioral health and mental health are integral components to overall health. And we do have a myriad of programs and services we don't have time to talk about today to support our employees. And we do encourage them to become actively involved in their mental health. And that has never been more important than now. As we all manage through the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing crises related to racial inequities, these collective traumas we're experiencing, we know has led to increased need for mental and emotional support. Our teams rallied at Prudential to provide virtual services and programs to make sure that all of us who are working remotely can continue to get the support that we need as we continue to move through this challenge together. We've taken the pulse of our employees through surveys, through listening sessions about these critical issues so that we can better understand their experiences. And our leadership communications have been ongoing, promoting our health and wellness services and really helping to demonstrate empathy and help to reduce stigma and really encourage self-care. Another approach that we have that really helps us to reduce stigma is our strong partnerships with our business partners at Prudential, such as our communications, our talents, our inclusion and diversity, just to name a few, and of course our veterans initiatives. We work so closely with them to support our business resource groups and those who may be more at risk. We also view our managers as important allies for mental health, and our behavioral health team partners with them and trains them to help them deal with challenging situations in the workplace and also successfully be able to refer employees to the services and resources that we do have available. Over the years, we've also facilitated a variety of forums that encourage our employees to have open conversations focused on mental health and well-being. This includes things like panel discussions, videos that allow for sharing of personal stories, because we know, as we've heard today, they provide a powerful message to reduce stigma and encourage others to seek support and assistance. So again, thank you so much for having us here with you today. As our world and the workplace continues to rapidly change around us, at Prudential, we remain committed to partnering internally and externally with organizations such as Hiring Our Heroes to support mental health and to reduce stigma in the workplace and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam, and thanks to you and Prudential for that commitment and all the great collaboration over the last year. We're really incredibly appreciative and look forward to, by the way, continuing that work for a long time to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tina Athrall. She's the CEO of Psych Armor. Tina?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Still good morning here in San Diego. Congratulations. Once again, going to echo what everyone has already said to this outstanding team of individuals and organizations that have worked together to accomplish this incredible work. So yes, I'm Tina Athrall. I'm the CEO at Psych Armor Institute, and we are a national nonprofit organization that's dedicated to utilizing the power of education and learning to improve the lives of our nation's military, veterans, and their families. So we believe education is the catalyst for change. Education drives and raises awareness. It awakens, it inspires, it activates, it bridges conversations. We all know that from TED Talks, right? It breaks down barriers, it connects communities, and ultimately, it creates the powerful outcome of improving lives. Education is such a critical tool. That's why the pledge in the workbook has dedicated this next principle, number 2, to education and training. So really looking at adopting a comprehensive and proactive educational approach is priority to this work. And I think what you just heard from Pam in the way that Prudential is implementing it and that shared storytelling is absolutely so powerful. So here's the great news. Along with many partners that were a part of the working group, and you'll also have a resource guide at the end. There are already comprehensive, evidence-based, and implementation-ready educational tools and training partners available to employers. There are organizations that are dedicated to this work, like PsychArmor, and we're so ready to support you. So at PsychArmor, we truly do believe that training and education can be easy and fun, and it can create opportunities to spark conversations with your teams. It helps build culture, and most importantly, to build a culture that's inclusive to all members of your organization. We love lunch and learn. So those of you who know PsychArmor, we have most of all of our content online. We encourage that it's used in a way in which your teams can start conversations. So brown bag lunches we've seen lately, a lot of great different ways. But elevating a conversation around the various challenges related to mental health and well-being truly is a priority. We hear this over and over again on everybody before me, but this is a key step in building out these strategies to implement the well-being in the workplace as you take this workbook home. So I love tackling challenges with the mindset of how might we? Any other design thinkers out there? So here's an example for you, always putting things into practice, as how you can take this workbook back to your teams and ask that really important question, how might we take this plan and implement it? You heard Deborah talk about it. She wants it to grow, so we need to make it grow. So when PsychArmor is working with teams, we recommend raising awareness to the unique culture of our military-connected community. And we start that with a stable course of 15 things veterans want you to know. So 15 things in really less than 15 minutes that could raise awareness to culture, stigma, and overall myths and facts about the military and veteran community. So just start simple, be creative, create curiosity. I'm just so inspired by this work and the opportunity for those of us to talk about the things that we truly believe in, how we're mission ready to support this organization, because it really does have that positive impact from the workplace all the way to an entire system. If anyone follows the work of Gary Ridge, and if you could get him on this whole committee, I think it would be incredible. So he's the CEO at WD-40. And he talks about how a company creates an environment where people can go to work every day, make a contribution to something bigger than themselves, learn something new, feel safe around their values, and they go home happy. So happy people creating happy families, and happy families creating a happy world. So I truly believe in this powerful mindset, and I hope all of you will join us in utilizing the power of education that's going to be talked about in this second principle of the workbook to create happy lives for our entire military-connected community. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Tina. And I'm going to kick it back now to Deborah Shear, who's going to introduce our third chapter of the guidebook.
Thank you, Eric. And listening to Chris and Pam and Barbara and Tina, we are all so fortunate to be able to learn from each other. I think before we created this coalition, each of us may have felt a little bit like we've been laboring in a silo against this great challenge for our country, and what a gift it has been to collaborate and to learn from each and every one of you, and to now have the whole country learn in this workbook from your experience and your expertise. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues from the VA, Dr. David Carroll, who leads the VA's Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, and Dr. Matt Miller, who is the director of VA's Office of Suicide Prevention, to share a little bit about how we think about access at the VA. Secretary Wilkie talked about the enormous growth in mental telehealth visits during the pandemic. And those numbers are just astronomical when you think about what a monumental effort it has been in a short period of time to expand this access, but expand we have. The VA went from 2,000 video visits a day before COVID to over 30,000 today. And it was certainly an enormous undertaking. Behind every one of those new appointments was a veteran navigating a new tool for the first time, a provider learning how to give care in a different way for the first time, and a government IT department rapidly expanding access, broadband usage, platforms, and capacity, as well as our private sector partners jumping in to make sure we could meet the needs of every single veteran we serve. It was no small feat in a condensed period of time. But in addition to expanding access, Dr. Carroll and Dr. Miller's team also expanded their dashboard of risk factors to include those unique to the pandemic, and they built new population management tools. They used these to arm VA providers and launched an all-out effort to proactively connect with those who might be most vulnerable. And they were determined to build a connection, a communication connection, and a sense of community for people who might feel alone, and let them know it was okay to reach out. And I know that both of them and the entire VA organization would be happy to share our learnings and to share these outreach tools with all of our partners. Because really, when you look at the Prevents video and you think about the messages that all of us are talking about today, it is to proactively reach and build a connection with those who might be suffering. We're grateful to be a part of this. And Eric, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Deborah. And our next guest speaker is Jason Carson, who's the Director of Incident Support Services for the Office of the Chief of Police here in Fairfax County, Virginia. Jason, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say I am honored to be here as a representative of the Fairfax County Police Department, being part of this discussion on such a huge topic. I've had numerous discussions with Dr. Van Dalen about this topic. And, you know, I think it's important to realize as we move forward as a representative of public safety that anywhere between 30 and 40% of our public safety members are veterans, and how our lives as public safety members and veterans parallel with each other with some of the very similar experiences. And in our agency, we had lost many to suicide. In my 27-year career, we had lost 15, and 6 of those are very close friends of mine. And, you know, I was hired as a representative of Fairfax County to come back as the director. And we wanted to be more proactive about the stance on suicide. We were tired of responding over and over to these calls. And it was important for us to develop strategies and programs moving forward to prevent these deaths. And so we ended up implementing a survey that went across the state of Virginia. And we quickly learned with a 70% return how many of them were suffering from anxiety, depression, how many were suffering from flashbacks, nightmares, addictions to alcohol and opioids, and having sleep disorders. And what this survey did for us, and it was only a 23-question survey, and we were very careful about how we implemented it because many of those in public safety and many those as veterans might avoid the survey if it was too direct. But what we ended up developing were safety nets, policies, programs, diversion programs for our officers, leadership programs, because we found out that leadership played a huge role in the mental health of our employees. And, you know, providing resources such as clinicians and a neurologist and psychiatrist, and implementing telehealth. And I'll tell you, telehealth is a new business model for us. And we found that with today's technologies and officers being assigned telephones to perform their duties, that it was easy for them to meet with clinicians in their own car, their own cruisers. And so it has become our new business model because we have implemented mandatory wellness checks. And those wellness checks have been very rewarding for us in a sense that they're actually talking. It's changing the dynamics of our profession where they would never talk before. And it's giving them the opportunity to connect with clinicians, and they're making more appointments and doing so. And in a culture that I thought I would get so much pushback, I didn't. They really want this. And I think even our veterans and just general employees want this as well, as many as I work with. So it's changing a culture slowly, but it's working. You know, we have officers reporting themselves or reporting others, and us implementing these programs and getting them back to work and giving them that sense of purpose we discussed, and making sure that we don't create the isolations. But it's been the opportunity for us to create a very strong strategic plan to providing a holistic approach on human performance. And when I say human performance, I mean everything from the head down. And I think it's important that we also recognize that as leaders and as managers, that our job is to create growth within our workforce, that everybody is going to struggle. It's our job to make sure they struggle well. And when I say growth, it's about teaching them to look at life through a different lens and being positive about the things they can do and can control. But other than that, I feel like this has been a huge tool with us, implementing these surveys and creating these programs in order and identifying those in crisis and getting them the services they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate your remarks. It's now my pleasure to introduce Linda Boggs, who's a principal at Deloitte. Linda?
Thanks, Eric. I can really feel the energy building with each speaker that has gone before. So I'm also feel the privilege of being here and to be part of the industry team supporting not just this handbook, but the overall Prevents initiative of preventing suicide. So thank you for that. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide some comments on creating an inclusive workplace and on empowered well-being. Building a culture of inclusion has been a multi-year journey for Deloitte and a top priority for us. And for us, an inclusive workplace empowers employees to be their authentic selves, contribute meaningfully, and support their peers and create greater impact. We believe that each of us can exemplify inclusive behaviors in our daily interactions in the workplace. And we recommend 6 research-based inclusive behaviors to advance this culture of inclusion. And they include commitment, courage, curiosity, collaboration, cultural intelligence, and cognizance of bias. So these behaviors can help leaders drive a culture shift at the top and create an environment of acceptance and awareness about mental health through open communications, leadership transparency, and encouraging people to share their stories. Very consistent with what I've heard from others on the call today. These open lines of communication and promoting those open lines of communication between managers and employees are really important because they create the space for employees to communicate their wellness needs, including workplace adjustments or accommodations that they might have. So in particular, at Deloitte, we're focused on self-reflection to learn how we can take an active role in dismantling systemic bias and racism in our personal lives, communities, and at work, both in our client project work and in our internal work. This is including project-driven strategies on inclusion and resources and internal inclusion advocate program that we've stood up, and national level focused events, listening and learning from others' experiences and perspectives. I definitely agree with my industry partners on the power of storytelling and using those stories so that we can confront and oppose racism actively with allyship and support the needs of our practitioners. We also believe that an important part of supporting an inclusive culture is improving well-being and enabling and empowering our practitioners to prioritize self-care, whatever that looks like for them. We see empowered well-being as a holistic approach that gives our people the support and flexibility to make daily choices that allow them to be energized, confident, and aware, and provide people the opportunity to personalize their experiences in the ways that most matter to them in body, mind, and purpose. So for example, we understand that people are dealing, we are all dealing with various challenges during this COVID-19 pandemic, the lack of childcare, need to homeschool, elderly care, reduced access to support systems, isolation, and we think this really requires special focus and flexibility on how we operate, including the importance of being kind and empathetic towards one another, because we know that everyone experiences and manages stress, anxiety, and crisis differently. So we recognize the importance of well-being and resilience and the need to prioritize this, not just during this remote work time for many of us, but as a result of the COVID-19, but all of the time. And we really believe that this handbook will help other organizations do the same. Thanks for having us here today and for engaging us in the effort.
Thank you, Linda. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our last speaker, but certainly not least, Dr. Sonia Batten, who's a Senior Psychological Health Advisor for Booz Allen Hamilton. Dr. Batten?
Thank you so much, Eric. You know, I'm so pleased and so gratified to be part of the team introducing this practical guide for employers on well-being in the workplace. And I'm especially pleased to be speaking to you about the final principle of action for the pledge: continuous evaluation and ongoing collaboration. Because I worked for VA for many years on mental health issues, and I also had the pleasure of supporting the Chamber of Commerce Foundation on its Business of Kindness initiative a few years ago. So this is a collaboration and a team I'm very proud to be part of. You know, throughout my career, I've seen firsthand the impact that government and nonprofits can have on important issues. And now, having been with Booz Allen Hamilton for over 6 years, I've gotten to see the value that the private sector can add to the mix. So you've all heard of the importance of bringing communities together to tackle large problems. Well, at Booz Allen, we talk about the concept of a mega community. The idea that when we're trying to solve significant problems at the population level, we can only do this effectively when we involve all three sectors: the public or government sector, the private or corporate sector, and the non-governmental or nonprofit sector. And if we're going to tackle the issue of improving well-being in the workplace in the midst of a pandemic and economic downturn, while so many of us are working from home, or as I like to call it, living at work, we're going to need everyone who has participated in this effort to date and everyone who's tuned in today to learn more about this issue and to take new actions. So as we all move forward, let's make sure to keep in mind the importance of collaboration in the spirit of a mega community: public institutions, private organizations, and nonprofits all partnering together for a common cause. And as our organizations implement these ideas, we should work on continuous improvement and development of our programs to meet the needs of our employees, refining our own toolkits, and finding best practices based on ongoing data collection. Because if the first half of 2020 is any measure, the circumstances we will face will continue to change rapidly. Fortunately, I also have faith that our collective ingenuity and innovation will also continue to evolve to meet the needs of improving our group and individual well-being. And with that, I'll pass the virtual mic back to Eric to lead us in the next step of increasing collaboration.
Great, thank you, Dr. Batten. And you know, as I think everyone has now seen from this video and all the presentations, we have an all-star team of companies and organizations that are working collectively, that are passionate about this issue, that have made a commitment to make a difference, and they're acting on that commitment. And that's what makes this coalition really special. As I mentioned earlier, we had nearly 40 companies who signed that pledge with us back in November. And since that time, we've had 30 additional companies and organizations who've come to us and they've said, look, we want to be a part of this too. We want to make a difference. We understand how important this is, and we're willing to take the time and the effort so that companies of all sizes across America can benefit from these best practices we're seeing and learning from each and every day. So we're really fortunate today to have 9 of those 30 new companies join us. They're going to sign the pledge to help prioritize mental health in the workplace. I'm going to read off their names, and then we're going to sign the pledge together. And, you know, we're really, really thankful for, you know, I feel a little bit like the Washington Nationals that I've added 30 new team members to an already all-star lineup. You know, it's really very exciting to add, you know, 9 new team members today with this signing. So let me start out by introducing our first signer, and I'll go through all the introductions and then we'll do the signing. Tracy Platt, who's the Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resource Officer for Cerner. So,
thank you, Eric.
Tracy.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Not only is this a priority at Cerner, and I'm just thrilled to be here today, but as the spouse of a veteran, you know, this is very personal for me and my family. So it's a real honor to be a part of this coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Dr. Matthew Wallace, who's the founder and Chief Operating Officer for IMAG Generation. Dr. Wallace, hopefully you're with us.
Yes, thank you so much. And just listening to this has been very inspirational. My father is a veteran, and I too actually almost committed suicide in 2002. So it's very personal to me. I had a fellow walk with me for about 6 years on a personal level to help me to just understand more about life. And today I'm privileged to hopefully be able to walk with people and help them through their journey.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Melissa Lee Duenas, Senior Vice President and Director of Communications and Marketing for Leidos. Melissa, are you with us?
Yes, hi there. I'm so thankful to be here. I'm honored to participate today, an Air Force veteran myself, and this is a cause that we're passionate about here at Leidos, so thanks for allowing us to participate.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Erica Coe, who's a partner at McKinsey & Company. Erica, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you very much. Just to echo what others have said, this is an honor and a privilege for McKinsey & Company to be able to commit in this way, to show our commitment to supporting the mental health needs of all of our colleagues, but also the work that we try to do externally through our Center for Societal Benefit. It's an impressive cause, and we're happy to be here.
Thank you, Erica. David Gow, who's the CEO of Rally Point. David, are you with us?
I am, Eric. Thank you so much for your leadership and all that you're doing. And we're eager to not only take this pledge for all of our members, our employees across the country, but our 1.8 million members around the world to help them do the same.
Thank you, David. Paul Weckman, who's the Director of Veterans and Military Services for Sanford Health. Paul, are you with us? Maybe Paul's on mute. Let's see. We have a thing around here. It's a mute moose. If for whatever reason we can't hear it, it's our fun way of letting people know they're on mute. But I'm going to assume that Paul is with us.
Eric, Paul Weckman here. Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. As the Director for Veteran and Military Services for we have over 600 veteran employees, but you know, being in the healthcare industry and a community provider for the VA, we've had the privilege to actually care and treating over 70,000 veterans in the last couple of years. So we definitely and wholeheartedly look forward to being a partner. Our CEO, Kelby Krabanoff, again, got 100% support from him and the entire leadership. So thank you, Eric and the team, for really allowing us to participate.
Thank you, Paul. Glad you're here. A good friend and someone who has done some amazing work across the nation. Tommy Norman, who's the chairman of the Veterans Bridge Home. Tommy, are you with us?
If you can hear me now.
You bet I can.
As an Army veteran and chairman of Veterans Bridge Home, we see around 2,000 families a year. I cannot tell you how critical this is. And I also cannot tell you how I believe this is going to be unbelievably successful. Thank you for all and everybody that's led this. And Eric, thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you, Tommy. Another great friend, close friend, someone who's been on this journey with me in this space since 2013, Miguel Howe, who's a partner at Cicero Group. Miguel, can you hear us?
Hey, Eric, I sure can. And thanks to you and thanks to the entire mega team represented on this call. You know, as a veteran and as a member of Cicero Group, we all know that our country must embrace mental health and emotional well-being as a cornerstone of overall health and well-being. You know, and we also know and recognize that mental health and emotional well-being are strategic imperatives for American businesses of all sizes. And so again, thanks to you, thanks to the mega team, Cicero Group is absolutely proud to support and to sign the Wellbeing in the Workplace Pledge today.
Thank you, Miguel. And last but not least, Rebecca Brune, who's the Chief Strategy Officer and Regional Executive Director for Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute. Rebecca?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. I just echo what everybody said. We are honored and excited to be engaged in this work. You know, veterans is such a large portfolio for us across Texas, and now even more so being engaged at the national level with such incredible partners is just, we're honored and thrilled. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Mr. Secretary, I think we've done a great job of adding to this all-star team and the collaborative effort. We're really honored to have these teammates help us on this journey, and couldn't be more honored to help achieve the VA and the administration's mission of ending not only veteran suicide, but reducing it across this great country. So with that, new teammates, you all have a pledge in front of you. So if you would, please sign your name on the bottom of that pledge and join us officially, because unofficially you've been tremendous helps already, but join us officially in this great and noble cause. All right. Well, this has truly been an inspiring afternoon for us and a morning for others, one where I hope everybody who's been able to see this has seen the passion and commitment of what this issue means to us as a group, not only from a business perspective, but to each of us personally. In one way, shape, or form, all of us have been impacted by mental health and wellness, whether it's either personal or whether it's a close family member. And we all know that our collective efforts can and need to make a difference for those who are suffering or those who need a little extra help. So I want to underscore that, even with today's practical guide and the addition of 30 new members of 9 who signed today, plus another 20 plus, it's really just a starting point. We've done a lot of things together already. We've had great collaboration, but as we continue on this road together, it's one that's going to take continued effort as we reach out into communities and the businesses of all sizes to join us in this effort and to make a difference, even if it's at one life at a time, to make a difference for all those who just need a little extra help. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining the Chamber of Commerce Foundation and Hiring Our Heroes, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Prevent Executive Order Task Force for not only your commitment and your work thus far, but more importantly, I want to thank you for collaborating on the journey ahead. Thank you, and God bless you, and look forward to that further work together. Take care.